for barrels, bins, cages, and beds. Okay, so the reason my lumber cart is like this is my lumber is not going to be here forever. As I move further down, I'm going to begin setting up the actual final floors. And when I do that, this stockpile will stay here, but my track will get extended. Now, what's actually happening here is so say I tell him to chop down these trees. There's more than 9 trees there. When he finishes what he's doing, he's going to go chop those down. They're going to load up to those 9, and all my stockpiles are going to be full. They're immediately going to take those trees, they're going to place them in this minecart. This minecart can hold an F ton of logs. Now when the minecart's full, or 10 days have passed, they're going to take this minecart up here, and it's going to auto dump. Now the auto dump creates a quantum stockpile. Now quantum stockpiling was doable before through a complex system with hatches and pressure plates, or through designating all your logs for dumping, only having one dump pile. They go dump it there, and then you unforbid it. So this allows it to stack, and you'll notice none of these are forbidden. So it's completely automated, this process. So I have one tile with all of these logs on it, and there is no limit to how high this goes. The other thing you can use this auto dump feature for is, yes, it quantums if it dumps to the left, but if I had placed a channel right there, I could channel a shaft down to my lava, and I could dump my raw ore down a shaft, and it would fall 80, 90, 200, however far to your lava, and land right next to your smelter. Now the only thing you have to be careful with there is, depending on how you have it set up, if you just have it dump right into the middle of an open room, if a dwarf passed through that, he gets hit on the head by ore traveling at terminal velocity. So he basically explodes. And depending on how you have your stuff set up, I generally long-term set up my stuff to auto-forbid on death. Now you have to go through and search that whole room for every piece of him, because it will bounce and skid a hand into some corner, and then you'll wonder where the hell all that miasma is coming from. Now the only comparison there is when you say so much more useful than actually sending the cart down there, is now you have all these bars down there. How do you get them back up? So one of the benefits is you've got to get the cart down there. So you either have to make a path down so it's on a perfect loop, or you can also have it dump, then you can have it dead end into a channel. The cart falls off through its momentum, falls off its track. Now the cart plummets. Now if the cart lands on another track, it loses all forward momentum, even if you launch it into that channel, no matter how much forward momentum. But if it lands on a roller, something that will power it, that saves you that whole distance down. And now you just have to worry about getting it back up. So that's a single helix as opposed to trying to figure out a double helix. So I mean, that gets really complex, but it really depends on how deep your embark is. My embark here is 74 deep. I'll probably just go ahead and mine a channel down. It's not a big deal. But my last embark was 298 deep. I mean, you're taking up a significant horizontal distance trying to get down there. Not to mention that dwarf physics is totally crazy. When something falls, it can only hit terminal velocity. When something is going down when something is being powered by rollers, it can only hit terminal velocity. But for some reason, when minecarts are going down a ramp, they continue to accelerate. Now, generally, your ramp would not be long enough, but let's just say previous to your ramp, you have them on rollers where you already have them at terminal velocity. As they go down the ramp, There is no limit to how fast they can be going. No, it quantum dumps anytime it auto dumps. So what you're going to do is you're going to go B, construction, which is capital C, capital S. Now right there you have dump on arrival. Dump on arrival determines it. Just like retract on a bridge, it defaults to none. If you set it, it's just like that. It gets a little fishy. If I have it dump, if I say had this first one right here, if I had this dump to the right, they would keep loading this lumber in and it would keep auto dumping. And it would create perpetual forever. They would just keep loading and dumping, loading and dumping, loading and dumping. So, and you cannot change the dump status of a track stop after it's constructed. You have to deconstruct it. Now, I say deconstruct, but keep in mind that if your tracks are out in the open and you're relying on track stops, you need to build in a protection system because tracks do not behave as constructions. They behave as buildings as far as building destroyers are concerned. So your tracks cannot be destroyed. So your cart will just keep chugging along. But the track stop itself can. And thieves can make off with your minecarts if they are moving slow enough for them to grab them. But they will reach out and try to grab your minecart, and if it's traveling at terminal velocity, it will just destroy them. Alright, get my mason running here. Make sure that he is not hauling. There are plenty of other people to do hauling. Okay. Now here's what I'm kind of playing with right now, is I'm trying to change the whole concept. I mean, if you look on the forums, there's 1,000 ways to design these mass bedrooms, but why do we do that? Why do we make everybody go off to this separate apartment complex? Why would I not assign this to my woodworker, who now picks up his wood 2 squares away, paths here, deals with this, goes to bed right here. Now the only thing he has to path away for is food and drink. And eventually I'm going to need somewhere to store my furniture. Who is idle? Oh, that's fine. Actually, check how much lumber we've got. See, look at that. Do you know how much space that would take up? Not to mention the space. It's so. I mean, you can argue that this is kind of exploitive, and so you can have him dump into an empty square next to a stockpile if you want it to take up that. But I don't know. Because of workload, won't the dwarves eventually start timing their food and drink about the same time they want to sleep? I imagine that once they broke for one while their mind was off of things, yeah, that may be very possible. That would only make this method more effective, though. So I don't see that as a problem. See, and then where's my crafts dwarf? Tell him to stop hauling. Does not need to be doing jewelry. You may do all kinds of crafts. Early on, I just kind of prefer to separate them by industry. Very asymmetric. Does that bother you? Um, I need... Now, wheelbarrows are still awesome for getting at that initial distance. Well, one of the things you have to remember is there's really never... You're never done. Because you can always build walls and floors, and there's virtually infinite stone available, depending on how deep your embark is and just how long you've been running, you're never done. So you can always go back. The only downside to moving to all walls and floors and basically, you know, designating like this and then just building your walls in is that you can't engrave. And actually, I find the way it looks better because you don't end up with those, like, color strands. You can actually kind of choose your construction material. And with designated stockpiles, you can make sure that whatever your most common construction material is, isn't used by your crafts dwarves. So, I've actually gone back and mined out, like, every last little thing that's a different strand. Yes, I've definitely died to invasion because I've made everybody a mason or an engraver. Okay. Well, that's the benefit of not doing all your levels the same, is even if I do a symmetrical design, I'll have kind of key levels, like this one maybe I'll make like this pinwheel here. But then up here, I'll kind of strand everything off to the left. Okay. Make a bedroom. Assign it to my craft store specifically. Hopefully he's chugging on coffins right now. I try to keep enough coffins around for more than my current population, because there's been too many times I've gone into a tantrum spiral because people aren't being buried properly, and yet they won't make coffins because they're tantruming. Ramps are funny because the theory crafting and the logic says ramps are less processing power than stairs, because ramps have like a max of, you know, they designate as like a max of like 6 exits as a dwarf, or as opposed to stairs where they calculate each of the surrounding squares, and so it just adds up. But I've had ramps behave all kinds of weird. And you have them designated in the correct direction, and it's real straightforward, and they just won't use them. And the nice thing about having them bunk right next to their work area is, as of like 2010 or 2011, that's what a lot of the older players don't think about. They're like, well, that you can't do that because of noise. Workshops don't generate noise. So there's really no downside. Do you have waterfalls near your stairs? Why are they falling downstairs? Noise is digging, but digging is inevitable. So if their unhappy thought is from digging, they can suck it. Dodging. Oh, is that from wheelbarrows? One of the things that can actually get you away from that is not doing what I did here, that was this real sloppy vertical shaft, is don't use any up and down stairs. If you're having an issue with that. Like, as soon as I get down low, I'll get away from these. And you do like downstairs like this. And then when you go down, do upstairs. And then, I mean, obviously these are in like little rooms. So come over here, create maybe